the Revisionary Podcast with your host, Juan Carlos. The Revisionary Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Revisionary Podcast. And as always, I'm your host, Juan Carlos. Today, I'm very excited for this episode, but before I jump in, let me tell you a little bit about this podcast in case it's your first time listening. The way this works is we bring on guests, usually comedians, who tell a nonfiction story about their lives in which they wish things had gone a little bit differently. Afterwards, I give them an opportunity to tell the same exact story. This time, they can change any facts or details that they would like about the story. So this week, we're actually sitting down with Jaci Terjeson, who I actually have not had an opportunity to meet, but I've heard a lot of great things about her. I've heard she's an absolute sweetheart, so I'm actually really looking forward to having this conversation. And we have an upcoming show, so I am going to meet her in person. Like, we have chatted online, but I'm excited to get out there and actually see her and see what she's really like. So that'll be really cool. She comes highly recommended. I feel like every person who has ever mentioned her to me has had nothing but good things about her. So I'm going to go ahead and sit down with her and let's see how this goes. Let's see if I can get Jaci on the line. Hello, Jaci. How are you?
Hey, Juan Carlos. I'm doing so good. How are you?
I am doing so well. Thank you for joining us on the Revisionary Podcast. We're doing it.
Yay. I'm so happy to be here.
Honestly, for those of you guys who are listening out there, Jaci is super dope. We had the opportunity to work together once. We put on together a fundraiser for Canines for Kids. She donated her time because she's just a super dope, awesome person.
Well, what can I say? I like canines and I like kids, and anytime I can get those two together, I'm on board.
You know what? I support this. What have you been up to?
Oh my God. Well, 100% wiping my kids' butts and picking up their toys. That's been the majority of me trying to survive the pandemic. But I've been doing a lot of online content. I started a TikTok, which
how's that going?
It's great. It's really fun. And I really like, I don't know. It's fun. I like doing I'm horrible at editing. So to have everything so easy on TikTok, I'm like, oh my God, I can do this.
Can I tell you something? This is not about you, by the way. This is just me complaining, all right? So this is what this is.
Let's hear it.
I went to start a TikTok I wanted to, right? I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to become TikTok famous. And then I saw, I was scrolling through Facebook because I'm old and still scroll through Facebook. And one of my friends had posted, she goes, there's no reason for you to be on TikTok unless you're trying to attract kids, you pedos. And I was like, excuse you? I'm an entertainer. I'm not trying to attract kids. I'm trying to attract an audience base. And some of those audiences are 18 to 24 and on TikTok. That's how that works. So if you're listening, I'm throwing shade at you, Stephanie. Sorry.
Oh, snap.
Stephanie.
No, actually, it's so true. I'll be looking at TikTok. I'll kind of scroll through and there'll be a video and it'll be a 15-year-old. And I'm like, I feel wrong. There's nothing wrong with the content. They're talking about their hair. I'm like, why do I feel like I'm reading your diary right now? This is inappropriate.
Oh man, that's funny. So how long have you been doing comedy? How'd you get into comedy?
So I'm in my fourth year of comedy. Fourth year of stand-up comedy. So really, I've done theater my whole life and would write sketches and perform them for school assemblies and stuff like that, and loved it. I don't know if anybody else loved it, but I was having a good time. And then I got into improv a little bit, and so I started stand-up almost 4 years ago. 3.5 years ago. How did I get into it? I always wanted to try stand-up. And then one of my friends told me about a school, a stand-up school that was happening. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. She was even like, I'll give you some money to do this. I think you would be really good at this. And then I signed up that night and it started the next week. And I've just been going since then.
So, what do you have, a bachelor's in stand-up? Is that how this works? Do you get a whole diploma?
It's a master's.
Got it.
No. No, no. No real formal education.
All right, Dr. Laughs, I see it. Call me by my proper title.
It's Professor Giggles, but it's fine.
I like that, Professor Giggles. And you, just so we're clarifying, you are the rare native of Washington, right?
I am. Yep. I have basically lived in Seattle and Tacoma and in between. And that's my life. That's where I've lived.
Yeah, this 30-mile stretch, huh? That's all.
I've seen a lot of things on the I-5 stretch of Washington. No, I'm traveled, but I do like it here, and especially having kids, I like being close to my family.
Right.
Not that I'll always stay here, but for now.
I think that's pretty dope. Why don't you go ahead? Because I know this about you, so I'm going to let you share this with the revisionaries if you want. You don't have to. But you actually have an adorable story about how your family started, right?
You mean like how I met my husband?
Yes.
Oh, God, yeah. My husband and I actually met in sex ed. I've been writing a bit about this, which is really fun, but we met in sex ed, and I halfway through the year, I see this kid that I think is just like so hot. And I'm like, turned to the entire class because I'm a loudmouth. And I was like, you guys, we have a new student. And they were like, he's literally been here the entire year. Yeah. Like, ooh, I was like, I felt really bad. I was like, how can I make this up to you? So we've been married for almost 10 years. Which I think that's like making it up enough. You know what I mean?
I think that's super cute.
Oh.
Yeah, it's adorable. Look at you guys.
I know.
It's interesting too. I think it's interesting how like if you marry, I don't know. I think I saw this on TV or someone else said it, but whatever. If you marry your high school sweetheart, everyone's like, that's cute, right? But like
Right.
if you marry someone you met at 19 or like in college, right away people are like, oh, that's too young. You know what I mean? It's like this weird like you know what I mean? Like
It's so true.
Like, marry your high school sweetheart at 20, everyone's like, that's cute. Meet someone at 19, marry them at 23, and people are like, oh, what are you doing?
They're like, that's too soon. Like, what are you doing in your life? Yeah, true. High school sweetheart's totally socially acceptable.
Yeah, I don't understand. But whatever. Let's jump right into this. You ready?
I'm so ready.
All right, Jackie, the stage is yours. Go ahead and tell us your story.
Okay, so here's my story, all right? And it does involve my husband. His name's John, for all the listeners out there. And he's good looking. So if you're listening to this, please feel free to picture just a really sexy man.
I'm sliding in his DMs as we speak.
Do it. So we were living in Seattle at the time, and I was working at a coffee shop downtown Seattle, as you do. And it's rainy, and I'm just so sick of the Seattle weather, and I want to get away. So I just start Googling on the computer, looking up. I think that it started like I was on one of those discount sites, Groupon, and it started probably like, I should Groupon like a date night. And then you see the ads on the side that are like, go to Mexico. And I was like, yes, I would much rather do that than go get ice cream or whatever I was looking up. So it takes me on this spontaneous rabbit hole of looking up Groupon trips that I could take, obviously pretending to be anywhere except for rainy Seattle, because we loved living in Seattle. It was crazy expensive, and it's like it was fine. It's like either you live in Seattle or you can be happy. You know what I mean? Like you can't
you can have both.
You can't have both, but you can live in a really cute apartment and just like be seasonally depressed for like 9 months out of the year. But anyway, so I bring this up to my husband. I'm like, listen, we have to go on a trip this summer. Why not? We have no kids. We have no responsibility. We're not responsible people. Maybe we pay way too much money for our apartment, but why not also spend money on a trip? So he's like, yes. But he was like, I want to take a road trip. And I'm like, okay, you're going to choose a road trip over Mexico? Like, or wherever, somewhere out of the country. Like, okay, the only people who choose a road trip over an all-inclusive resort, they either have a fear of flying or they have a warrant out for their arrest. Like,
did he?
I don't know. I'm still trying to dig into his background.
Got it.
Yeah.
You're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Wait, is he like into camping or something? Because I know that's why some people like doing road trips.
Yes, he is into camping. He was like an Eagle Scout growing up, so he spent a lot of time in the woods. And
oh, you got one of those, huh?
Yes. Scouts honor runs thick in his family. So I was like, so of course we did what any 20-something would do. We decided to do both.
Oh, you were going to drive to Mexico?
Well, we were going to take a road trip. This is how, like, I don't know, ridiculous we are. We were like, let's do a road trip. We'll get home. And then, like, a few days later, we'll go to Mexico. Which, like, this is not remotely anywhere close to what I could do in my life at this point anymore. So it makes me laugh. So we're going on a road trip. We go to visit his brother who lives in Utah. Not a Mormon, whatever, but he was there. He's a music recorder, so I think he was doing something with that.
Okay.
So John is like a wilderness guy, right? So he wants to go home through the backwoods through California. So
why?
I'm not listen, I'm like a big city girl. I'm not like a woods person. I'll go to a campground that has a bathroom in walking distance. I mean, if it's rough, I'll put some quarters in a shower. I can do that. But it's like, okay, we're just going to go through the woods. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be a great drive. Much better than just going on the freeway. So I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. So we start, he shows me on the map too. It's not even like a road, right? It's just like a line on the map. And I'm like, I trust you, whatever. Also, I'm like not even thinking about it. So I'm like, this will be fine. So everything's great. We're driving, we're having a great time. We're listening to music. And the road that we're on starts to narrow a little bit. I'm like, this is a little weird. It starts to turn into a gravel road. I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. So we keep going. We're going for a few miles, and all of a sudden, there's just like bushes out of nowhere that kind of start to cover the road. Right. And like our car can barely fit through it. It starts to scratch the sides of our cars. That's how narrow it was. Mm-hmm. And right before we went on this trip, we had just bought a new car. And so we're christening our car with giant, it sounds like, like a witch just like scratching her claws on the side of our car. So we keep going, and there is no sign of a legitimate road at this point. We're like in the freaking middle of nowhere. And that's when I start to be like, where the hell did you take me? I like start to like get like really accusatory. You're supposed to take care of me. I'm your wife. Like, what is going on? Maybe I start to get a little teary-eyed. Not because I'm emotional, just because I'm dramatic. And if I can make a show of something, I will. So there's like cows and sheep that we're like basically in someone's pasture. We're playing like, it's like we were playing Frogger. Remember that old Frogger game?
Where you try to cross the street?
Yes, it was like that, except for with cows and sheep. Like they're just everywhere. We're just trying not to hit somebody's livestock at that point. And also at this point, the sun is starting to go down. So we're like in the middle of nowhere. There's no other cars. Like we have not seen a live person in probably like 5 or 6 hours at that point.
So the pandemic, got it.
Right, exactly. It really prepared me for life now.
Okay.
So we stop and I'm like, I'm kind of freaking out at that point. I'm like, listen, we're literally in the middle of nowhere. Maybe we should turn back. Let's go ahead and pull out our GPS and figure out where we are. Our phones weren't even like completely out of cell service. We couldn't call anybody. We couldn't order a pizza. I'm like getting hangry at this point too. I'm starving. And there's no one to call. There's nothing. So he's like, okay, I think I can follow this line on the map. We're like looking at the map, trying to see like, is this little squiggle like the turns that we just took? So we go down a road and it's like, it's someone's house. Like we literally end up and we pull up to somebody's farm and it's like, they obviously own a gun. Like they're in the middle of nowhere on a farm. These are the type of people who will chase you off of their property with a loaded gun. Because the only people who are pulling up to their house are like the bank people telling them that they're going to take the farm away. That's like where we're at, right? So we turn around, we're lost. We're contemplating just like, should we just like stay out here until like it gets light? But we're also starting to run out of gas, Juan Carlos.
Okay.
So like, there's not a gas station. Like, are we going to live out here now? Like, is this where we live? Like,
right.
Do we live here now? And out of the pitch black night pulls this giant patriotic Chevy. I mean, there was basically an American flag printed on it, basically. And in the front seat are these two men who look like they should be on a cigarette commercial. They've got giant cowboy hats.
Yeah.
And, one of them has this giant mustache. And they just meet us at this fork in the road. And we're like, oh my God, are we being touched by an angel right now? Mm-hmm. This is like freaking insane. And we go, hey, which way to California? And without saying a word, they just point. And we followed the road down and it led us to our campsite, which when we got there, still completely pitch dark. We're still in the freaking middle of nowhere. I don't think I'm going to see another person again in my life.
Hold on. I'm going to stop you for a second here because I'm a little bit confused. Were you not in California the entire time?
We were headed to California. So we were in the state next to California. Don't make me
Which
say
is?
It. Nevada?
Okay. So you were on the southern tip. Got it. Okay.
Yes. Whichever state.
No. Nevada is certainly next to California. I thought you were coming in from the north, and I was like, does she know Nevada is not north of California? I think it's Oregon.
Utah. We're coming from Utah. So whatever.
Got you. You were on your way back from Utah.
Yeah. I did not get into comedy because I'm good at geography. So that was like...
Okay.
God, I've been doing geography puzzles with my kids during the pandemic. Woo!
Hold on. So here's my second question. So you said that he pointed and you ended up at your campsite. So were you guys not actually lost? You just thought you were lost? Is that what was going on?
I guess. There's just so many forks in the roads. Like we could have been traveling out there for hours. So I do think we were lost, but we were also on the right track, which I think is just a good metaphor for life,
Look at you turning it around. All right, I see you. I respect it. Okay, cool. So you're at your campground. It's pitch black. Then what happened?
I'm like, yeah. I'm just like, I'm mad. I'm terrified. I legitimately feel like, where did you take me? There's not another person here. But as we're like trying to decide what we're gonna do, it's too dark to even set up a tent. And some random guy walks up to us and like, we haven't seen anybody, right? The only people we've seen are the cowboy angels. And we're like, who is this guy? And he's a real gruff guy. Just like, he doesn't say too much, but he looks kind of scary. And he's like, just want to let you know, there's bears out here. he's like, I put all my food in the toilet. And he meant like, you know, the rest area or whatever. Like, okay, thank you, strange man. And he just walked away. So I was like, all right, we're definitely sleeping in the car tonight. Like, let's lock. It's like, deep, deep, like lock, double
Wait,
lock.
so he didn't even want to go camping?
Well, I was just like terrified. I'm like, this guy's probably going to murder us. He's out here in the middle of the woods with the bears by himself. So like, what is he running from in his life?
Why was he sleeping outside if there were bears outside? Was he trying to scare you guys away?
I don't know. I guess he was just like a real cool guy. He was a real Bear Grylls, I guess. Yeah. And he was.
I'll have you guys know there's bears out here.
He was trying to become one with nature, I think, was what was really happening. But he wasn't cool enough to keep his food with him. So, you know, I guess he gets a 7 out of 10 on my Bear Grylls scale. Anyway, so I'm freaking out about this guy. I'm like, let's just sleep in the car. Number one, so it's harder for him to murder us because he'd have to break a window or something. And number two, because it was just so dark, we didn't want to set up tents. So we sleep in the car, and the next morning we wake up and it is beautiful. Like, wherever we are, it is so gorgeous. I finally start to not be so mad about being lost in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, okay, but like, still, where are we? And how long is it going to be before we get to, like, I'm not a fancy girl. I just want to see a Target. You know what I mean? Like, I want to know that I can get some Mosmo jeans and whatever else they have at Target, like, any time that I need.
Right.
So being that far from a Target was very uncomfortable for me. No, I'm kidding about that.
No, she's not. She exclusively shops at Target. That's a nice day out for it. I'm just kidding.
I wish you were lying, Juan Carlos. I wish I could say you were lying, but you're not. So we go down this like really long hill, and I'm just thinking, like, please let this not be a repeat of yesterday. Finally, we hit concrete, and it's like the best feeling I've ever felt. I'm like, oh my God, other people have been here before.
Right.
Like at least some cement people and one guy who knows how to operate that rolly truck smushes all the concrete down. And so we finally end up in this little town, and it's like this little tiny mountain town, and they have a diner, and it's like, it's such a small town. We have to wait for it to open because it's like old people, you know, who are just like, it opens when you get there. And we're starving because we didn't bring enough food to be like lost in the wilderness. So I order the biscuits and gravy. And I mean, these things are like rocks. They're like, it's like, you know, Krusty's biscuit that was baked like a week ago, but they poured some gravy from today on it to make it a little, go down a little smoother. But I didn't care. I was like, yes, finally, I don't care about, you know, whatever digestive issues this is going to give me later because I'm finally eating. And that was that. And we made our way to the freeway, and we were good as gold, but we do still have the scratches on the car.
Wow. Congratulations. First of all, you made it back. Okay. So I have questions.
Yes, let's hear it.
Let's start with this. You don't have to tell me what year this was, but did you guys not download the maps on Google Maps just in case you got lost or lost signal? Absolutely not.
We are
okay.
We are so unprepared. Me and my husband's a little more prepared than I am, but no, we're not that, like, we did not have that like forethought at all.
Okay. So that's the first question. My second question is this. So you said that he was an Eagle Scout. So wasn't he like, I don't know, don't Eagle Scouts have like superpowers where they can like lick their fingers and know exactly which direction they're traveling and know how to like, make food out of dirt or something?
Oh, I'm sure that he did some wind testing with his finger at some point. If anybody here has ever been in a relationship with like an Eagle Scout or just any man who like likes a challenge, it's like the second things start to get like, wait, this isn't what it's supposed to be like. They get into like man solve it mode. And they're like, all right, this is what I prepared for. It's like, I'm pretty sure that there's like some dried food in the back of the car.
Say that again?
I'm pretty sure there was some sort of like dried food in the back of our car that we could have like whipped up with some water.
Right. Look, I'm just asking. These are the questions that need to be asked. So what happened with that random dude? Did he just sleep out there? Like, was he near your car when he was sleeping? Did he go away? What happened?
He was gone in the morning when we woke up. He was totally gone. So I don't know. Maybe another angel of the wilderness. Maybe a ghost.
I see. You guys made it up. It was a mirage. You were out in the desert too long.
Yeah, I was dehydrated.
There actually wasn't anyone there. You totally made this entire story up.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, I'm going to tell you this. Kudos to you for going camping because I, for one, refuse to go camping. And I'm going to tell you why. Two reasons. Number one, first and foremost, I'm Latino. So I like to tell people all the time, my parents didn't come to this country so that I could sleep on the ground. You know what I'm saying? They came here to give me a better life, and sleeping on the floor is not a better life, all right? That's number one. Number two, and this is the second reason I won't go camping. I made the mistake of going camping once with my friends in Florida. And I'm going to make a long story very quick and short, but as I'm terrified because I am a city kid as well, grew up in New York City, grew up in the Bronx, shout out to the 718 BX all day. You already know. And I'm sitting there and people are like, oh, we're going to pitch a tent. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And as we're setting up the tent, someone goes, yeah, be careful. There's wild boar out here. Now, I don't know if this dude was joking with me or not, but that is not something you tell a city kid his first time camping. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I was freaked out. The next morning, that night, my friend tells me that I can hop in her tent because I didn't bring one because, again, I'm a city kid and came underprepared. I came with an air mattress trying to sleep out in the middle of the woods because I thought that was going to be more than enough. Also, thank God she let me sleep inside with her because it rained that night. Absolutely pouring. Like those torrential Florida waters, you know what I mean? Where just the sky just opens up out of nowhere. So I'm sitting there and I can't sleep, right? And there were raccoons running amok. Like, you can just hear them running around. And as I hear the raccoons tearing up our campsite, I swear I hear a grunting sound, like a oinking sound. And I'm terrified. I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is it. I'm gonna die. This is how I go. And I'm like, bro, when I tell you, I sat there, like, curled up, like, she was asleep. And I'm like, wake up. I'm like, hey, Christina, wake up. And she's like, what? I was like, the boar. And she goes, it's okay, I have a knife. And like pulls out this like massive knife and then puts it down and rolls over to go back to sleep. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm sitting there all night with her knife to my chest. I was like, well, it's either me or the boar. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm killing something tonight.
If you need a knife to go camping, you shouldn't be there.
Right. I mean, look, that's a story for another day. So I'm sitting there internally freaking out. I was up all night. I did not sleep. Like, adrenaline was just pumping like through my body. Like, yo, I was like in, fight or flight mode?
Yes.
I was ready. I was like, yo, this is going down. We wake up the next morning and the campsite is a mess. Because like I said, the raccoons had destroyed it. And no one believes me that there was a boar. So to this day, my friends will make fun of me and be like, yeah, remember that time we went camping and there was the alleged boar?
Oh my God. That's so funny. Yeah.
So that's what reminded me of. But this isn't about me. This is about you, Jackie. So let's go ahead and turn it right back around. And I'm going to give you the stage back. Go ahead and retell us your story.
Okay, so I'm going to retell this story. First of all, the first thing that's going to change in the story is before we get on the road, we are hitting the 7-Eleven. And I mean like snacks for days. I'm getting Pringles. I'm getting some Gatorade. I'm getting some little, espresso shots, those little Starbucks things. I'm getting all of it, man. I'm getting like stuff I shouldn't even be eating. I'm getting candy and like sour gummies, like frickin' snacked to the max. Because nobody wants a road trip that doesn't have enough snacks. Also, probably going to bring some sort of portable potty because that's what you need after you snack a lot. So in this version of the story, we're going down that same road, right? And we're cruising, and the road ends. We're on the gravel. We're feeling a little worried, We see the cows, we see the sheep, and we're wondering like what's happening. And we keep going, and we get to that farm, the farm that the guy probably has a gun, and we knock at the farmhouse door, knock, knock, knock. And if they're friendly, we have a place to stay for the night.
Right.
We might learn how to milk a cow, which is exciting. Okay. We stay there. We stay there for a while because we're enjoying their company. We start to have children. We start to raise our kids there, and they have kids who would marry our kids, right? And we're just like, we're in it. We start like a commune with shared goals and ideals, shared goods.
So you're farm people now.
We're what?
Farm people now.
We are farm people. We're making our own clothing out of like weird linens, bleaching our own things. I don't know what farm people do. All those things, shoveling hay. My husband would probably get like those wireframe glasses, and he'd start writing a manifesto. He'd start taking more wives. Obviously, I'd have more babies, and people would start to like flock to this commune that we've built, right? They'd start to flock to it. They'd start to join our group. But eventually, as always happens, the FBI would start to get a little like what's happening, and start to get involved and try to break us up. And eventually it would end in like gunfire. The commune would go up in flames, kill mostly everybody inside. You know what? I think I just outlined the situation in Waco, Texas. So I'm gonna go back. Let's pretend that they're not friendly. Okay, let's pretend they're not friendly.
So Jackie, blink twice if your husband is forcing you to say this, because I noticed you gave him more wives and you started a call. I'm confused.
You know what? It's just what happens when you when you're in the farm in the middle of nowhere. When you're not with people, things get weird. I think we've all learned that, like in the pandemic. When you're not around people, things start to get weird. Maybe I'm just thinking of myself. But okay, so let's go back. Let's say that we knock on the door of that house and those people aren't friendly, right? If they're not friendly, it's like I have 2 more minutes to my comedy bit on this, which is great, which is what all comedian dreams of. Something to go crazy. So we have stuff to talk about. But anyway, okay, so this is my story. So we'd keep continuing down that road and we'd run into the cowboys, right? These crazy, angelic men who were out in the wilderness, just got done with a long, hard day's work, wrangling some steer or whatever, veal, all of the animals. And when we're like, hey, which way to California? And they refuse to talk to us, we take that as disrespect, right? We're like, we asked you a question from where we're from. We talk, right? So we get out of the car. My husband and I, we're like ready to fight, right? We're like, we're going to fight these cowboys. All I obviously take the one with the mustache, right? Because, you know, we have that in common. I love podcasts. I always like to laugh at my own jokes. Anyway, we'd almost win too. I think we'd almost win because like I'm kind of scrappy, you know, same with my husband, and the mean streets of Tacoma, you know, really taught us how to fight. So they're like, we'd almost win until one of them like brings out like throwing like horseshoes and just like beats us until we're like bloodied, right? Like they could probably finish this off, but they'd help us up, right? They'd extend their hand, pick us up, and they'd tip their hats, right? As a sign of respect of our bravery and fighting skills, right? And then we'd be on our way. We'd be like, wow, that was what just happened. That was crazy. And they'd give us some moonshine, like as their gift, as their token of like, listen, you fought a good fight. Here's some moonshine, which we'd use to clean some of our wounds. And then we'd bring our moonshine to the campground where our friend would come up to us, right? This murderous, scary guy. He'd come up and he'd, you know, tell us like, just want to let you guys know there's bears out here. You're going to want to put your food in the toilets. And we'd be like, yes, we will do that because we have a crazy ton of 7-Eleven snacks and those are way too good for bears. So we gotta put them in the toilet. And then we'd have a fire with this guy. Even though there was a burn ban, we'd be very careful. We wouldn't let anything get out of control, but we would partake of this moonshine with this guy, and we'd get to know him. We'd hear his life story. And then halfway through, we would realize that this stranger was actually Dermot Mulroney. Do you know who that is?
No idea.
Julia Roberts' love interest from the 90s hit film My Best Friend's Wedding. What the hell is Dermot doing out here in the middle of nowhere? Obviously, he's escaping the pressures of Hollywood. So he's come to take some downtime, and he tells us all about filming the 90s hit film My Best Friend's Wedding, how Julia was, how Carmen was, you know, just like everything, all the folklore. We'd sing, you know, from the moment I wake up till I put on my makeup. We'd all sing that together, and eventually pass out from all the moonshine. And then in the morning, we'd pack up our things, obviously much later, probably around 12 or 1 p.m. We'd wake up and we'd drive into town to see this diner, this breakfast diner, and we'd stop. And I would order the eggs, bacon, and hash brown instead of the biscuits and gravy because that's just who I am. And then we'd drive on our way back to good old Seattle.
So let me back up here, and I'm just going to clarify.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I have the right takeaway from this. So instead of getting lost, you either start a cult or assault somebody. Those are the two options that you chose to go with, right? That's what I'm getting from this?
I mean, I think for somebody without like a whole lot of higher education, those are really the only two sustainable options that I see for the future.
Okay. Absolutely absurd. But look, I want to say thank you for coming on the Revisionary podcast. I've loved having you. And I did not see your retellings coming that way. Here I thought we were going to tell a wholesome story, but nope, she's starting a whole cult. So we have two traditions on this podcast before I let you go.
Okay.
The first is we like to pick a charity or an organization to highlight. Normally, we like to pick something that our guest is passionate about. Do you have one that you're passionate about?
Yes, I do. I have one that I'm very passionate about. So here in Tacoma, we have some really great organizations. actually that my husband and I feel passionate about that really help the community. One that I wanted to highlight today was the Multicultural Child and Family Hope Center. It is located here in good old Tacoma, but they do some amazing work. They help kids. They run a daycare. They are constantly giving out free food to people in the community. They also have like emergency services for foster kids who need, like, they don't have anywhere to go. They haven't gotten placed with a family. They have places for them to come and be safe and be cared for. And they also do like parenting classes and stuff like that.
Perfect. And if you don't mind, providing me with the link, I'll go ahead and put in the show notes so that everyone can follow along and support them.
Yes, I definitely.
The second tradition. Oh, good. Perfect. The second tradition that we have on this podcast is we like to ask our guests to share a quick childhood story that puts a smile on their face or just generally makes them feel warm inside when they think of it. Do you have one?
Oh my goodness. A childhood memory that puts a smile on my face? Isn't it funny when we ask for a childhood memory? It's like all the worst ones come up in your mind first. A childhood memory. Okay, I'll just tell you the very first thing that comes to my mind.
Perfect.
Which was my grandparents love going on walks. They love birds. And so as a kid, my family did a lot of like outdoor like walks to like nature centers or wildlife refuges and stuff like that in the area, like wetlands. Here in Washington, we have a lot of wetlands. And so I just remember so fondly, I'd go out to like usually like a Saturday morning, we'd pack a lunch and we'd go on a walk as a family. And my grandparents would know every single bird, every single name of every single bird. And as a kid, like, I thought that was the cool, like that was the epitome of cool. I was like, man, I've got to get to the library when I get back to school, find some books, really read up. And so they would take us out and we'd see, and they'd also know like all the plant names. And I remember exactly this one time we went out and it was by a beach and we were going to camp there. There's a lot of camping in this one, but we were going to camp there. And all I dreamed about was that we would have a fire on the beach, that we'd have a campfire on the beach. And we got there and it was so windy. Like sand is being, like everyone's eating sand because it's so windy there. The sand's just being picked up. But my family, so sweet. They love me so much that they made a campfire anyways. And everybody sat out in the sandstorm basically around the campfire and made like s'mores and roasted hot dogs because I wanted it so bad.
That's super adorable. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I want to say once more, thank you so much for coming on the Revisionary podcast. Do you have any last words for our Revisionaries?
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I guess my last words would be, no bad days. There's no bad days. I hope you guys have a great week.
Perfect. Where can the Revisionaries follow you?
They can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Venmo. All of my accounts are under @Jaci Terj Comedy. And I post a lot. I'm very active on Instagram. So follow me there for all the hot goss, all the 411.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jaci. Bye.
Thank you.
The Revisionary Podcast.
So I've learned a few things from listening to Jaci's story. Number one is that, if you're sitting there and you're listening to this podcast and you're in high school, shoot your shot. You never know. It might work out. And number two, don't get lost. Also, don't take weird road trips to the middle of nowhere. Those were my takeaways from the story. But thank you guys for listening again. And as always, you guys are the best. You're the reason that I do this. Thank you for listening.
This is the